so much for joining me for today's cozy fall video. I am really excited because this is actually going to be a new series. I am fortunate enough to have gotten to work on a really exciting project recently. Kind of took place over the last few months. A customer of mine who's a music professor reached out to me about creating illustrations for a music book that she's creating for her students. So kind of like how a chapter book might have chapter header illustrations, I created an illustration for each song in the book. So based off of the name, I had pretty much free reign to do whatever I thought fit with that. So it was a really fun project. All of the songs were animal names, which of course was right up my alley. So today you'll be seeing Fox on the Town, which was really fun to do. It might be one of my favorite ones that I did for this series. And even better, Kathleen, the music professor, has recorded the song to play alongside my video. So you'll actually get to hear the beautiful music that this illustration is for. So I really hope you enjoy this series. I don't have a set schedule for it yet, but there will be more videos like this coming in the coming months. And also, I hope that you've been enjoying the little instrumental videos, the paint with me's that I've been doing. I think that those have been pretty popular, which is really nice. Yeah, and if you're looking for a little bit more like in-depth videos or videos where I describe my process more, you can find those on my Patreon, which is linked below. about my process of doing this painting. So one thing that I think always makes the biggest difference is if you add in shading. So I think a lot of time with watercolor, especially in like a children's book illustration style, it can be done with very like flat kind of like coloring book style fill in the color, which is definitely a style, but it might be something that you're falling into without even realizing it. And I think that it can make your pictures much more dynamic and dimensional if you just add in a little bit of shading. So I typically wait until, well, that's not true. Sometimes I do wet on wet, but if you needed to have a crisp line somewhere, like at the edge, you know, of the collar there or something, then I wait until it is all dry and I add it in that way. And some artists actually paint the shadows first. That's how I learned to do it. And I think it kind of depends on what watercolor you're using, because sometimes that works and other times it seems like it kind of washes away when you do your wash over it. So anyway, that's just a little tip for you all. As you can see, watercolor is all about working in layers and it requires a little bit of patience. Here I'm doing a kind of wet on wet technique where I am adding in a little more gray while the layer is still wet, and I kind of wanted this to like give the hat a little bit of a woolly look, which I'm pretty happy with. I think it did give it kind of a different texture than some other parts of the clothing. And even with like white areas, you can see his little kerchief bow tie. I went in and I added some shading because sometimes you can neglect parts of the painting that are, you know, that are quote unquote white, but actually, you know, even white fabric has shadows. So that's something that I actually get asked sometimes with my pet portraits is, can you paint animals that are white? And the answer is yes, because a lot of people think, well, it's just going to blend into the background. Sometimes you do have to kind of exaggerate some shadows, but yeah, that goes for painting any animal that has white fur, is that shadows are necessary, and you can kind of choose either to just do them in a gray or kind of an undertone of the painting. Maybe there's like a golden cast of the lighting, so you do it in more of a golden tone, but play around with it and see what you think is right for your piece. I'm going in to make some little details with a colored pencil. Sometimes when decorating a room, or probably in classical paintings, they talk about having like a triangle of colors. So let's say you want to have yellow accents in your room. You might have a yellow throw pillow and a yellow vase and then a yellow book on the bookshelf. And that kind of is like a common thread throughout the room. And other times you can just choose to like have a surprising moment. So I think about that kind of thing sometimes with the clothes and the colors I choose for my characters, of what do I want to draw attention to. So in this case, his hat is the only thing that has green on it, and I think that that green is kind of a nice contrast with the color of his fur. And I wanted to have his waistcoat underneath his jacket have a little bit of detail, which is why I did that stripe. But sometimes I can get to the point in a painting where I realized I wanted to use yellow or something like that, but the only thing left to paint is the mug. And the mug that the animal's holding, maybe I don't really want it to be the center of attention. And so sometimes you have to kind of change course. But it can be really helpful to map out your colors digitally ahead of time. If you feel like there's going to be a lot of accessories and things that you have to make those decisions for. It's important when you're painting to let your paint dry, because a lot of the time what you think you're painting that's black is going to dry gray. So just let it dry and step back and see where you need to add in more contrast, because with watercolor you really do tend to lose some of that as it's drying, and you might have to go in with more layers or even with a black pen. The inking is actually one of my favorite parts of doing these. I feel like it always just kind of finishes things off. It can be nerve-wracking because it's really easy to make a mistake at this stage, especially on the face. And I remember when I was first kind of painting in this style years ago, it would not be a super uncommon thing for me to get to the point of doing like pen on the eyes, and I would just ruin the whole thing. So it does take some practice. I did a lot of drawing with pen only and not allowing myself to use pencil, which kind of got me more comfortable with the pen and also more confident in my like gestures I'm using to make my drawing. I hope you all have enjoyed seeing the process of this. If you're interested in more videos where I talk about my process each month on Patreon, if you're a member of like the $5 tier or up, I do about a 10-minute or so video describing my process of the monthly art. So that art is made into prints from my print club, and it's also what you see here in the long format videos that just have instrumentals. So if you are curious to learn more, or you just like hearing about my process, you can go ahead and check out my Patreon, and I would love if you would join me there. I want to say a big thank you again to Kathleen for this music and for bringing me onto this project, and I can't wait to share more of these paintings and music with you all. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning how to draw your own animal characters, or maybe you want to start to bring a story that you've written to life, you can check out my Skillshare classes. I have it linked below. And you will get a month free of Skillshare. So that means that not only can you take my classes for free, but you can take any of the classes on Skillshare. So I hope you'll check that out. And you can also leave a comment today on this video and let me know what you think. Hope you have a great week.